Good afternoon, or morning, or evening, wherever you may be. While we wait for everyone to join us, I just want to introduce myself, and I also want to introduce the subject matter experts, the panelists that will be joining us today. My name is Kevin Quinn. I am the first vice chairman of the National Volunteer Fire Council, and I have been with the council for 36 years, over 36 years, and I've been active in the volunteer fire service since 1976. I do want to apologize for my physical appearance today because behind this, there is a teachable moment. There's also a pretty face. Some of you know me and some may not know me, but I have been the poster child for the cardiac in firefighter physicals in the American Fire Service for years. I was at a firefighter physical, picked up a depression, some of my cardiac activity. I ended up having quadruple bypass surgery. And I really took that to heart. And my goal was to get back on a pack in 2 months. And I was able to achieve that. But ever since then, I've been actively responding back home in Rhode Island, in South Kingstown, Rhode Island with the Union Fire District. And behind me is the flag of Rhode Island. I'm going to move out of the way. And in the middle of our flag is the word hope. And this presentation today, this sharing, this uplifting event is so that we can look at hope and look at the future. And I wanted to kind of give you my health story as it is. As I said, cardiac is important to me, and I've been very consistent with what I do to try to maintain my health and safety. But this past March, my cardiologist asked me to scale back my response and my activities because of COVID. So I was isolated. I was, at home, not responding to my community, to the alarms, to help out in my situation, in my department. And I kind of felt the effect of that emotionally, and I ended up gaining 19 pounds. Well, when I realized I'd gained 19 pounds, I went on the attack mode, and I went on a full diet, exercise, and took care of myself. And I ended up, doing a lot of hiking. Well, this past Tuesday, I went on an 8-mile hike in the woods, and I slipped on some black ice and ended up on a boulder, a face plant, and broke my nose. So another 2 hours from now, I am going to be having the surgery. But for now, the teachable moment is, how do we heal? I am broken, yet I'm hopeful for I will heal in time. And we're looking at today as a healing process and this message of hope. And I believe we're going to see some great and hear some great messages from our subject matter experts. I'm fortunate today to be joined by the NVFC chair and Kansas director, Steve Hirsch, the NVFC fire chaplain, John Long, Dr. Candace McDonald, founder of Success Up for Life and volunteer firefighter, NVFC's Massachusetts director, Chief Joe Maruca from West Barnstable, Massachusetts, and all the way from Greece, Dimitris Veris, and vice chair. He's the vice chair of the Hellenic Volunteer Firefighters Association, accompanied by Maria Bitra, International Relations of the Hellenic Volunteer Firefighters Association. Let me review today's format. Thank you again for joining us. I want each of you to appreciate, we appreciate your dedication, your sacrifice, and service to your communities. We'll hear from each of our panelists one at a time, but then there's an open discussion. We want this to be an encouraging conversation. So if anyone has input or feedback, we're asking you to put your questions and write them in the comments section below on this virtual presentation. If we don't get to your questions during this presentation, we'll have you email them out to Matt at NVFC. And I want to thank Matt Odom for presenting and putting together the works behind this logistically. Before we begin, I just want to say a few words about the NVFC and what we do, and as the leading nonprofit membership association that are interested in all firefighters, EMS personnel, and providers of rescue. Our mission is to provide a unified voice for the volunteer fire and EMS organizations. We also provide resources, training, advocacy, and programs to help volunteer emergency responders. You can learn more about us at nvfc.org. You can also join in on our membership at $18 a year. We offer plenty of benefits, the AD&D policy, free training through our virtual classroom, and information and more can be found on nvfc.org/join. Hope, resilience, and camaraderie. Wrapping up 2020 in a positive note. Boy, do we need that. We are all most certainly realize how difficult the past 10 months have been on the entire world. Before we can heal, we must look back, and by the numbers, let me share a few things. December 1st, 2019, the first COVID case appeared in China. By January 2nd of 2020, there were 41 people hospitalized in China. When we look at the numbers as of yesterday, December 17th, 2020, globally, we've had over 74 million global cases of COVID. And in the United States, it's been over 17 million COVID cases. Of the deaths, the tragic deaths globally, 1,659,000. In the United States, we just surpassed 310,000 deaths. As of December 16th, Wednesday, we've had 111 United States firefighters, EMTs pass because of COVID response. 46% of those are volunteer firefighters. These tragic losses run deep. Each member that we're recognizing here are people, and they're affected by family, friends, coworkers, and many times they're dying alone. Today's message of hope, peace, and resilience was developed due to the heartbreak and tragic loss across the globe. We are using this as a preview for a major multinational and multicultural event that the NVFC is scheduling and working up for the spring of 2021. Our emergency services worldwide have had tremendous impact, both positively and negatively. And today, the NVFC believes that we need to begin to heal together. I'd like to turn this over to Dimitris Verzis of the Hellenic Volunteer Firefighters Association out of Greece to say a few words and provide an international perspective on this year's events in the global volunteer fire service community. Dimitris?
Good evening from Greece. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So we are very happy to take part in this event, and thank you for the invitation. I am passing the warm greetings from the chair of our association, Mike to Greece, and all the Greek volunteer firefighters to the brothers and sisters across the state. We are in the suburban area of Athens, in the volunteer fire station of Pedeli, which was established in 1997. In Greece, there are 2,200 volunteer firefighters. Even though we are small in numbers, we have a huge passion about volunteer fire and rescue. 2020 was really difficult, facing double challenges, incidents and COVID, trying to stay safe during operations and at the same time following COVID protocols. This year also we lost in the line of duty in the brush fire a brother volunteer, Panayotis, who was only 27 years old. It was very devastating for all of us. But we didn't lose our strength and courage and the passion to serve our community. And we honor his memory by staying focused on the same values which also Panayotis believed in. The fact that all our brothers and sisters globally face the same situation give us more strength to overcome all these difficulties. Now we are certain that the worst is coming to an end, and we will welcome the new year with optimism and smile. I want to share my time with Maria to say also a few words.
Maria?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. NVFC has been doing a tremendous job connecting not only the brothers and sisters across the states, but also globally. Yes, it has been a very hard and a difficult year for everyone, having no actual weapons to fight this situation, not only in Greece, but also in all European countries. Talking with brothers and sisters in Italy and in Germany, we have seen that we face the same difficulties, the same challenges, and we share the same fears. However, even at the most difficult times, we all agree that there is hope. And hope is strengthened because in everyone's, in the US, all around the world, our fire and EMS station, in these stations, there is camaraderie. And camaraderie is one of the basic traits of firefighters and generally first responders. Camaraderie keeps everyone strong. Dimitri?
So we have a small surprise for the NVFC.
Okay.
We have a custom here, a New Year's cake. We make one. I will show you to you, and Maria will explain. So here is the cake.
Very nice.
It's called Vasilopita in Greek. If you allow me to explain, the cake of Vasilopita is a Greek custom for the New Year. We make a kind of bread or cake. We call it Vasilopita, and it is cut in pieces. And we name who receives each piece. It contains a hidden coin. And whoever receives the coin gets a piece of the cake, and the hidden coin is inside, receives good luck for the new year. The receiver of the coin is considered to be very lucky for the new year. And also the cutting of the cake symbolizes, in Greece, it symbolizes blessings, health, and good luck for the new year for everyone. So we plan to cut this cake in pieces, and sometime before the end of our event, we will announce who the lucky winner of the coin is.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Dimitris. Thank you, Maria. And we'll let you do the ceremony as we continue on. And towards the end, we'll find out. But I like the part that everyone will be blessed as you're cutting it. That's the best part. So we need that. So thank you again for your remarks and for joining us today from Greece. I know it's late there, and we appreciate you joining in. So it's easy to get caught up with what's going on in our own lives and communities, and we sometimes forget the global perspective. So you bring that in, and we appreciate that so much. We need to look at and remember 2020 has been a difficult year for volunteer emergency services worldwide, and we'll all stand together in this. Now I'd like to hear from the NVFC chaplain, John Long. Chaplain Long, if you could, please, I'll give you the mic.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to start off with a scripture reading, and it comes from Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. You see, discouragement and depression can come from for many reasons. We all brush up against them when we lose someone to death, or, for example, or experience a problem that overwhelms us, like COVID-19. Depression may even come from chemical imbalances in our bodies that, when that is the case, we have to rely on modern medicine to help us. At the same time, when we feel discouraged or depressed, we need to turn to God in prayer and commit the situation into his hands. This is not a substitute for medical treatment if we need it. You see, God ordained the physical laws that govern our bodies, and he can use the insights of medical science to bring healing. But ultimately, our lives are in his hands. And when we face problems of any kind, we need to turn to him. God wants us to be aware of his presence and his love during those often lonely roads. Knowing he is with us gives us hope. And from that hope, joy. We also find patience as we rest in his sovereign power and plan. And besides, where else can we turn but to him? Whatever you're doing or dealing with, you may discover with this truth in a new way. In Deuteronomy 33:27, it tells us the eternal God is our refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. The best way to deal with depression is to open up about it. Trying to hide it and keeping your feelings from your family and friends only deepens the depression. Once you open up about your feelings, you may find that others around you are dealing with the same thing and truly understand what you're going through. They understand, and it can be a resource of information on how you can help yourself. Sometimes when we read God's words, our minds take it literally. When we shelter under God's wings, we are comforted in everlasting arms. But you may not see the feathers of God's wings, but the arms of a loved one or friend are definitely the arms of God. God never created us to be alone, and he made us to be sociable. And during these trying times, we have to look at the fact that we're very fortunate that we have so many ways to be connected with each other through the internet and like we are today. We are God's creatures, and if we rely on that hope that he will bring us through this situation. Many references are in the Bible, and it tells us of all the times that God had quarantined his people. And every time they came out of that quarantine, they had a better life afterwards. And no matter where the Israelites were exiled to, they had that hope of returning back to Jerusalem and to worship in his temple. And I believe we have that same hope. We don't know where God's going to lead us after the COVID virus, but we do know that he has plans for us. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chaplain Long. Thank you for that message of hope. We appreciate that. I'd like to turn this over to Dr. McDonald. I want to read a little bit of her bio. Dr. McDonald has served in the fire service for over a decade as a volunteer firefighter in Ohio, EMS officer, instructor, and fire inspector. She's also been the Ohio Fire Corps state advocate. That's when I first met Candace a long time ago. She's a trustee with the Women in Fire and second vice president of the Cumberland Valley Volunteer Firefighters Association. She works full-time for NASA as a special federal agent and is responsible for overseeing all the day-to-day operations for security operations. She also has a passion for empowering organizations and individuals to reach their fullest potential. And I give you Dr. Candace McDonald.
Thank you, Kevin. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to the National Volunteer Fire Council for the opportunity to be here with you virtually today. You know, hope and resiliency is a topic that's close to my heart. For the last several years, you know, we've worked to address firefighter mental health issues, and we've brought forward numerous studies that show first responders report higher rates of depression and other mental health issues, and we've taken a lot of steps to address that. But now we have the pandemic, and COVID has brought so many challenges for our first responders, especially our healthcare and EMS providers. In addition to being on the front lines and caring for or transporting the sick, our first responders now have that added stress of worrying about what's happening at home. Our providers are worrying about their families. They are worrying about being a cause of exposure to their loved ones, their partners, their kids, maybe their aging parents that they're taking care of, and so on. And some of our volunteer first responders are now unemployed due to COVID, and now they have that financial hardship, but yet they continue to serve their community. And then we have social distancing. That's led to isolation and higher rates of loneliness. And for those that know me, you know that I'm a hugger, and I thrive off of social interaction. I love people. I love networking. I love facilitating team building activities. And the pandemic has really tested my level of hope and resiliency. And before I get into my personal story tied to COVID, I want to talk about what hope and resiliency is. Hope is it's an optimistic attitude with a mindset that focuses on an expectation of positive outcomes. It doesn't mean that we think everything is always going to be okay. It just means that we know that we will be okay. So people with a hopeful mindset, they look at obstacles in life as challenges to overcome and use their optimism as a way to kind of fuel their plan. And to create alternative plans when things aren't going the way that they had hoped that they would go. So instead of having that woe is me, this is the end of the world attitude, people that have a foundation of hope, they start game planning on a better path that they can travel on to fix the situation that they're in. And maybe they can't fix that circumstance, but they can learn to cope better and to create a different type of environment for themselves. And studies have shown that hope is tied to an increase in life satisfaction, and it kind of serves as our buffer against the impact of negative and stressful life events. Where resilience, on the other hand, that's an individual's ability to adaptively respond to those stressful situations. Resilience is your ability to kind of bounce back from those negative events without falling into that pit of despair. And we know that life can be unfair. It can be hard, but resiliency, it allows us to use those tough moments as a springboard so that we don't allow ourselves to hit rock bottom. And so it's important to remember that. Hope and resiliency, there are protective factors. They help us deal with and help us overcome that tough stuff. And studies have shown time and time again that people with high levels of hope and resiliency, they are physically and mentally healthier. Studies have shown that patients that have medical issues, that have that positive attitude, they actually have a better response to treatment. So promoting positivity has so many positive impacts that can help prevent relapse and depression, and it just increases our physical and mental health. So for many of you, you know that our family, my family, was one of the first to fall victim to COVID. My husband, who was a firefighter, paramedic turned emergency department nurse, he contracted COVID at the end of March, and he ended up on a ventilator in April over Easter. And I have to tell you, this was one of the hardest things that I've ever faced as a wife, you know, dropping my husband off in the ER parking lot and having to leave him alone, knowing how sick he was. So within 24 hours, I got that phone call that he was going on a ventilator. And so here I was at home alone. Nobody could come and be with me. I was home alone with my three kids who had already lost their biological dad to cancer. And my husband had just adopted them a year before he got COVID. And here he is on a ventilator. So I remember I curled up in a fetal position right in our front yard. I just shut down. About after 5 minutes of ugly crying, I started to pray, and I started to remember, focus on that hope and resiliency. And it started to kick in, and I started to focus on what can I do? What can I do as a mom? What can I do to be positive for our kids? So, as we went through this, what I started to do, in addition to holding on to my faith and praying, is that I started to look at what could I do for other people. So I actually started this anchor, and I don't know if you can see this okay, but I started to mail out these anchors of hope to first responders and healthcare workers across the country. And I had a little Bible verse tied to that about, that talks about how our hope is so important, and when we're tied to God and the impact that can have. And I sent that sticker out to over 1,000 providers from New York to California, but it was something that I could do because I had no control of what was happening in the hospital. I couldn't be with my husband. I had to trust that the medical staff was taking care of him. But what I could do is do something that I had control over. And for me, that was helping other people, helping other providers who were out and serving the community, helping them to feel better and provide encouragement. So one of the things that was helpful for me during that time of isolation, and I do need to let you know, we had a happy ending. My husband did end up making a full recovery. He is back to work. He's back at the hospital, and he is doing so well. But one of the things that was helpful for me was social media. And it was all of the positive messages that I got from so many of you in the fire service from around the globe. Those messages letting me know that you were thinking about me, that you're praying for our family. That meant a lot. And as people are going through tough times, whether it be COVID, whether it be depression, whether it be substance abuse, continue to send people those positive messages. Let them know that you're there for them. Even if they don't respond, they're getting them, they're reading them. And believe me, it means a lot to them. So how do we build resiliency as first responders? Well, one, it starts with making connections and establishing good relationships. Again, like I said, it was those relationships that carried me through that hard time. We need to learn to accept help from others. And we also have to be willing to support others and be there to assist them in their time of need. Another thing that we can do is we need to stop seeing a crisis as the end of the world. We can't change certain situations, but we can change how we react during those difficult times. You know, we have to decide if we're going to be a victim or if we're going to be a victor of our circumstances. We have to accept that changes, it's part of life. And sometimes we have to shift our own goals due to a certain circumstance so that we can learn to cope with it and kind of redirect our path. And that's okay. And we also have to be careful that we keep that negative nagger out of our mind. Sometimes that inner critic can kind of really impair us. So we have to be mindful of that. And sometimes we have to just tell ourselves, you know what, I'm not going to be negative. I'm going to focus on the positive. And we have to remind ourselves. And whether that be through journaling or you know, reading something positive, or even getting a friend who might be your accountability partner and say, hey, I'm struggling. Can you remind me, you know, to be positive and help me focus on the good? That's okay. We can do that. And the other thing that I can't stress enough is self-care. It is so important to practice self-care. We need to make sure that we're nurturing our bodies and our spirit, and we need to be engaging in activities that bring us joy. And I know that can be difficult during the pandemic, but we need to find those little things that make us happy. And whether it be taking a walk or hiking, like Kevin said, we love at our house hiking with our dogs, but we need to schedule those things. Put them on your calendar so you have something to look forward to. We schedule doctor's appointments, we schedule other things, but we need to schedule time for ourselves. And that will help us to become more resilient. That me time is so important. And I can't stress that enough. And again, as I kind of wrap up this discussion, I just want to remind you, just reach out to your brothers and sisters and make sure that they're okay, and let them know that you're there for them. So thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Candace. I really appreciate it. Dr. McDonald, thank you for sharing your personal story. We're grateful your husband won his battle for sure. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Joe Maruca, who will discuss things from the departmental perspective. Before you do, Joe, I did want to say, you mentioned, Candace, that hiking and those exercise. Steve Hurst, the chairman of NVFC, when he found out I had my accident, he sent me a message, said, exercise can kill you. I said, yeah, I've got to be careful about that. So Chief Maruca, West Barnstable, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's an honor to be here today. Thinking about, you asked me to talk a little bit about camaraderie, and I may be a little off point to that, but I think it comes together on this point that it's about all of us in the department and how we respond as a team and as an organization, and for the benefit of our communities. And as I thought about this, I think that today, as I sit here, the West Barnstable Fire Department is a stronger organization today than it was a year ago today. And we haven't allowed the pandemic to destroy us or to damage us or to throw us back. Has it created chaos? Absolutely. Have we had a lot of anxiety and difficulties? Absolutely. But it hasn't weakened us. And in fact, as a team and as a group of men and women who are here to serve our community, I think we're stronger. I don't want to give it any credit, but I think I don't want to give credit to the pandemic, I should say. I think what's happened is that the act of dealing with the chaos and the anxiety has made us better. And probably we're the strongest group of individuals that have come together since the founding of the department back in 1949. We've never been better than we are today. And we've been in a tough spot. We're an ALS ambulance service in addition to a fire department. We're at the height of this pandemic, we have 500 active cases of COVID within a 5-mile radius of our fire station. We've had staff that were ill. We have family that are ill. A lot of anxiety. And in the early stages, we struggled with all the things that everybody saw out there, and we had to limit our staffing. We can't come together every Tuesday night and train the way we used to. We've got budget and financial problems because of this, but we got through it, or we're getting through it, because it isn't over yet. We got a long ways to go, because we learned how to focus on the mission. And we were able to kind of understand that why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? You know, we're trying to help our community. We're trying to make our community better. We're a critical element in the quality of life if you live in the village of West Barnstable. That's part of what we are, and we needed to be that. And we couldn't let the pandemic dominate us. It may have forced us to change everything we do, but we're here to help people. And if we focused on the mission, we were able to do that. And what we found is that we just had to focus on finding ways to meet the mission or making new ways to meet the mission and not worrying about the old ways and the ways that we were comfortable meeting the mission. And that's tough because we emotionally get attached to things. You know, I never realized how emotionally attached I was to Tuesday night drills. Since I've been chief of department, I've stood at the front of the training room in this fire station 1,000 Tuesday nights. I was doing some math the other day. It's been more than 1,000 Tuesday nights in my life. And I love that role, and it's my favorite room in the station. And that room has been empty since about March 15th. And it's killing me. And I can't wait to get back in that room. Because training defines who we are as an organization. It's a big part of our culture here in West Barnstable. And in a typical year, the average West Barnstable volunteer will do about 180, 190 hours of fire and EMS training. And with the room closed, it doesn't feel like we're there. And I looked at our numbers through last week, and we're on target. We're going to make it. We found ways, new ways. We trained outside. We've trained in small groups. We've broken up into groups of 3 and 4 and 5 to do drills and repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. And it's a lot more work on leadership and the officers and the instructors because we can't do everybody at once. We don't have fire hydrants here. And every year we do a giant regional water shuttle exercise to practice firefighting without hydrants. And we bring together a dozen departments and 100 firefighters to do this drill. We couldn't do it this year. And we broke it into 3 separate distinct drills, each focusing on a different element of the water shuttle. And we discovered it was actually a better drill than the ones we've had in some of the other years. And we'll probably do it again every so many years the same way. So we're finding our ways to move ahead and accomplish things. We started a new recruit class in April, and we've got those recruits graduating as we hit the end of the year. And we got a waiting list of people that still want to join us. And we're going to start integrating those people into the organization after the first of the year. And we're going to start another recruit class. I'm not sure how, but we've made the commitment. We're going to do it. We're going to figure out how to do it. And this is what makes us stronger than ever. This is what builds our fire department community. It's what kind of
that was Leanne,
pulls us
right?
together.
I
well,
have to go.
Almost.
Like now?
But, we're having record turnouts and it's going well. So.
Thank you, Joe.
It's good.
Matthew, if you could let the chairman in, he's ready to come in.
I see.
I'm getting pressured here because the hospital's called me like 9 times and my wife just called. I have to go. So if we can get Steve Hirsch on here, I want to thank, Chaplain Long, Dr. McDonald, Jimmy and Maria from Greece and Joe for being here. Matt, can we get Steve in to let him close this out?
I'm on.
Chairman, I
perfect timing.
Leave you to wrap this up because I have to go to the hospital to have surgery. But thank you for joining us, and let's leave with the positive message of this hope, resilience, and camaraderie. I appreciate it. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you.
Bye, Chief. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, Chief.
Well, I apologize for being late. I had another commitment that kind of came up at the last minute, a funeral. It's kind of hard to plan those, but I just want to begin by first off thanking our panelists here and Matthew for putting this together, and of course Chief Quinn for coming up with the idea of making this all happen on fairly short notice. I don't know how I could ever begin to thank the Volunteer Fire Service for what you all do every day. Day in and day out, there are volunteers responding to fires, to car wrecks and medical emergencies, and that isn't any different now than it was pre-COVID. In fact, do we even remember what life was like pre-COVID? Or is this yet another 9/11 type of event that we won't recover from? Our parents and our grandparents had the same important days and events too. December 7, that hadn't been all that long ago now, Pearl Harbor Day. According to Franklin Roosevelt, that was a day that will live in infamy. But you know, December 7th is also a date for the fire service to remember as well. 7 December 1836 was a day that we all note that Ben Franklin helped create the Union Fire Company in Philadelphia, the beginnings of the volunteer fire service that's become a giant across this country and around the globe. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. How amazing that our beloved profession would have started in the city of brotherly love. That's what the volunteer fire service is all about, brotherly love. Or perhaps we should say about helping our neighbors. It really means the same thing. On December 7th, 1941, firefighters were killed responding to the call for help from their neighbors at Pearl and at Hickam. On September 11th, 2001, firefighters were killed responding to the call for help from their neighbors in Manhattan. Pearl Harbor didn't keep us from responding on December 8th to fires. September 11th didn't keep us from responding to medical emergencies on September 12th. And COVID is not going to keep us from helping our neighbors when they need it the most. COVID doesn't define the volunteer fire service any more than any other date in history. It's the volunteer fire service that defines who we are as a people, as a nation, and as a global community. The volunteer fire service isn't afraid, it isn't scared, and it certainly is not dead. Our best days are ahead. And I saw that during COVID. Look at the parades that fire departments, volunteer fire companies held in their communities, the drive-by birthday parties for the little ones, getting medicine and food for the elderly and the homebound, hosting events virtually, loving on their neighbors as never before. I, for one, am so proud of the volunteer fire service and what we've accomplished during COVID. You're the hope and inspiration for your communities, and for me as the leader of the volunteer fire service in America. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And God bless each of you every day as you serve your community and your neighbors. I just want you to know how so very proud I am of each of you.
I think before we wrap up, we're going to let Demetris and Maria cut their cake and let us know who was the lucky one. Maybe you guys want to explain what happened with the cake, because I know Steve wasn't here.
Yes, of course. Good afternoon. What we mentioned before is a Greek custom in which there is a cake for the new year, which we cut, and this symbolizes. We cut in pieces. We name each piece for the person that will receive the piece of this cake, and there is a hidden coin in this cake. Whoever receives the hidden coin, this symbolizes a lucky year for that person, but also the whole ritual of cutting the cake for the new year symbolizes hope, health, and blessings for everyone. So what we did is made a cake for NVFC and for all volunteer firefighters and EMS, all first responders. And we have cut certain pieces, name the people, gave a name to each piece for each person present here. And the lucky winner is Dr. Candice McDonald.
Yay! Thank you, thank you.
Dimitris will show you the evidence.
Here is this is a coin, silver one. It's not actually silver, but it's a coin.
I love it. One day when I meet you, you have to give it to me, Maria.
We cannot see the piece, but we will send you the coin. Thank you for. We are lucky. We are in a big brotherhood, and NVFC is all over us and protecting us and guide us. Thank you for all this. Share here is very nice, and we will face the 2021 with a smile and a big optimism. So thank you for all this.
And let this cake symbolize hope and deliver a message of resilience to all brothers and sisters in the USA and all over the world. Thank you.
Yeah, well, with that, I think we'll close out our discussion. I just want to, again, thank all of our panelists, NVFC Chair Steve Hirsch, NVFC Vice Chair Kevin Quinn, who's ducked out for surgery. Of course, our chaplain, John Long, Dr. Candice McDonald, Chief Joe Maruca, and Dimitris and Maria joining us all the way from Greece. Thank you guys so much for your time and providing us with your insight and experience. I also want to thank all of you guys who joined us online today. We really hope that you enjoyed today's discussion and that you found it uplifting and hopeful and useful. We'll include the links in the video's description to the NVFC's website and to Success of Life's website, which is Dr. McDonald's website. If you have any questions about this discussion or anything for the panelists, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, the NVFC's communications coordinator, Matthew Odom. My email is matthew@nvfc.org. So thank you everyone again. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, or as in Dimitris and Maria's case, the rest of your night. And I hope everyone has a very happy holiday. Thank you guys.
Thank you all. It's been great. Enjoy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Merry
Happy holidays, everyone.